this guy as the big star in WWE in terms of a Cena level guy. What are both your views on Roman Reigns' status these days, given the amount they have let him have the rub on so many guys? Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. So thank you, Jimbo. Matt, where do you see Roman Reigns at the moment? Is he, as Jimbo says, a star, but not a huge star like Cena? Or, is he that star now, Matt? Because, the one thing I always said is if they give guys the rub, the right people, like The Undertaker, like Triple H, real credible guys, even Cena, then that gets people over, and that's the way they have to do it instead of that 50-50 booking. And you can't argue, Matt, with Roman Reigns, they've certainly done that as much as they possibly can. But is he, I guess, Matt, is he now the man at the moment with WWE? We certainly know WWE think he's the man, but is he the man, and is the perception changing?
Well, I would say at this point, where else can you look, really?
Yeah.
You talk to the average person on the street and you say, do you know Roman Reigns? So probably a lot don't, but, more of them know Roman Reigns than they probably would Seth or Dean, who are supposed to be in the street. So I guess, his stock is rising in popularity. And I guess, he definitely has the ability. I don't know. It doesn't really matter what people say, whether they say he doesn't deserve to be at the top or whatever. Mm-hmm. He has the look, and he has enough skills in him, certainly more than Cena did when he was on his rise up. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of Cena. I'm not discrediting his work, but Cena did a lot of hard work towards the end of his wrestling run to improve his repertoire skills. Mm-hmm. But Roman has a lot more than he had back then.
Yeah. It's a difficult one. I mean, here's the thing. I've never seen something not work and then keep going back to the drawing board. You talk about, we go back to Lex Luger Express. They wouldn't have done that then. So it's almost like they've said this has to work. No matter what, this has to work. And I don't doubt Roman Reigns, he definitely has the look. He's had some better matches. I feel like this year's been one of his better years. I mean, in terms of consistency. And part of the reason for that's been Braun Strowman. I think the feud and matches he's had with him have been excellent. Real good stuff there. And, the match with The Undertaker, you got to say that's credibility, like it or lump it. Having that victory against The Undertaker, which could be the Taker's last match, and him coming out saying this is my yard and everything else, it's my yard now and stuff like that. The match against Cena, listen, I don't think the match against Cena had enough impact for me, the same that it did with The Undertaker. He's beat Triple H. There's only one guy left, man. It seems like it's Brock Lesnar. And that's what we're building to. Now, last time, I think that was the case. They wanted Roman to be the man. They pulled the plug on it. And they had Seth Rollins come out and win the title. And they went with Seth. And yet that was the one they wanted, because they knew Brock had all the heat from being the guy that beat The Undertaker the year before. And Brock was going to hold the belt towards then. And I have no doubts that in writing... they penciled in that is definitely going to be Roman Reigns that wins the title. Now that didn't happen, and there've been many faults with this entire build of Roman Reigns. But I do feel, I've got to say, whether I like it or not, whether I like Roman Reigns as a wrestler or enjoy watching his matches, I do feel when I see him come out, he is a star. He's definitely a star. Now, whether he's in the level of John Cena, it's debatable but listen, John Cena, it's a hard comparison because John Cena, this is the thing with John Cena. There were photos I remember when he was just on his heyday. After that match, you remember that match he had with Batista, Matt, at WrestleMania? I can't remember how long ago that was, but it was like a few years after he'd beat Edge, and Cena had beat Shawn Michaels, he beat Triple H, he beat JBL at WrestleMania. He had quite a long run, and then he got to this match with Batista. But I remember that year there was this photo sent to me, and I couldn't believe it. And basically it was like this sort of like in the middle of absolutely nowhere in Africa, absolutely starving people everywhere, and yet there were kids just literally making their own tank tops like John Cena, and you thought that's the connection this guy's got worldwide. There are kids, starving children, without living in absolute poverty, but they're still willing to make a John Cena top. And you thought that's how far that stretches. Now, I don't think Roman Reigns has that personally, but I do think he's big for the kids because I remember a few years ago when we went to New York. I had some a nephew that actually wanted a T-shirt, and I thought, what the heck? But there are kids that like Roman Reigns, and I think the more they give him the rub, and I've always said if you give somebody the clean rub, they'll always get over it eventually, but you have to give them the clean rub. And the guys he's beating now, Matt, you've got to say they're the who's who's. I mean, after he beats Brock Lesnar, if he beats Brock Lesnar, let's say, but once he's done that match, Matt, it's actually very hard to think of who's left, isn't it, in a way? I know Braun Strowman's around, but you think about Roman's level and the guys he's beat, you'd think that's it then. That has to be the one. Do you think, Matt, that let's put it this way, would you be in absolute shock if Roman doesn't beat Brock next year? If that match happens, by the way.
I would be pretty shocked about that, yeah, because it just seems like the natural conclusion to his rise to the top. Mm-hmm. Once he's there, it would all become about who can beat Roman then, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, the debate with many fans is should he be pushed as a babyface? And again, I think that's the one. It's not so much about how much Roman gets, but it's sometimes about how stupid he was looking when he was doing the stupid lines and the sucker tags and that crap that he was spouting before. I hated all that. But now, I think he's got better, Matt. I mean, the John Cena segments he was doing, the promos leading into that feud, I thought was excellently done. It was like there was a bit of truth in it. And I think if they just hit that a little bit more, he would get over faster. I don't know what you think about that, but by guys kind of goad him. It's almost like I want CM Punk back there just to say everything that fans are thinking so that Roman can answer kind of authentically. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so he can just be himself. And actually, Roman isn't a bad guy, and he can kind of switch it on the fans. Like, what have I done wrong? I almost want to see Roman do that more, but we kind of only get it here and there. It's very hit and miss. I do think when they tried to have it done a few years ago with Triple H, I didn't think they'd done a very good job with that. I do think it was very, not correct. It was very positioned way too nicely for Roman to go over, and I didn't see that being the moment Roman gets over. But I think the Undertaker match last year, different ball game. This year, and next year if he beats Brock, again different ball game, going in the right direction. But it will be tough to see. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on him, Matt. I mean, they've put a lot of stock into this guy, and then he's got to live up to it. So we'll have to see, or will there be, another guy coming along to take that spot? But yeah, interesting times ahead. Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If Roman goes on, does all these incredible things, how big of a star, what could we possibly remember about Roman Reigns, the legacy of Reigns, if eventually it does get right and get over, and or maybe he doesn't? What do you think we're gonna, what do you think Roman Reigns will be remembered for? I know it's a bit of a major question here for you, but it's been such a stop-start career for him on this rise.
Well, we'll be forgetting about John Cena, and we'll be saying that Roman is the most polarising figure that's ever been in the WWE. He'll be yes or a no, whether you liked him or hated him. He will be that guy. And, again, he'll be a guy that has accomplished probably everything by then. He will, he's already won the titles that he can win. Royal Rumble winner. There's not much left for him to do already. Yep. But, he'll definitely be up there as one of the top achieving people that have been in the company.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that answers everybody's, well, at least Jimbo's answer there. It's a tough one with Roman. We know that, but I do feel the hate is slightly getting better. I don't want to say too much because I know what will happen. The emails will come in, but I do feel like it's easing up on the guy a little bit. Okay, next question now, Matt. Charlie here. Why is Andy Kaufman not in the Hall of Fame? He seemed like he really understood how to get genuine heat, and the guys of today should learn from him. Also, my question for this one, though, is why is it harder to be a heel? These days, it seems like heels are cooler and people want to cheer for them. What could they do to get actual heat? So, I think I had this question before as well in the old podcast, people asking stuff like that. But I'll just start on Andy Kaufman. Anybody that hasn't seen Andy Kaufman's work, especially with the wrestling stuff, should check that out, especially the stuff he was doing with the women. When he said he was the first intergender champion and all the rest of it, how he was doing that, literally hated by everybody, and then the feud with Jerry Lawler was absolutely an actual art, the way they did it and how much heat he got, and how much he wound people up. But Matt, it is an interesting thing because to be a heel these days, it does seem like they are cooler, and they get the better lines, and some of the baby faces just look ridiculous. Would you say, Matt, now that the days of proper heat have long gone since the exposure of the business somewhat? It's tougher to hate somebody?
Yeah, it kind of is. And it's also harder because if we're talking about WWE specifically, the PG rating, isn't it? You can't step across the line too far, otherwise someone might get offended.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about genuine heat. The only heat I've seen in the last 2-3 years is Roman Reigns. He's not even supposed to be a bloody a heel, but real legit heat. That's the guy. Other than that, yeah, there's been a few moments here and there, but they're not like the Triple H days, Matt, where he was hook and crook and doing all these things, and people were like, God, was this guy ever go away? And, one of the big things to that, I'll say this much, when you talk about... I think, first and foremost, if you're going to be a good heel, then back in the day, of course, one of the things about being a WWF performer, Matt, was that if you was a heel, the one thing you'd miss out on was you couldn't sell merchandise. So a lot of the guys wanted to be a babyface because unless you could get that match with Hogan... if you was going to be a heel, you couldn't sell any merch, and all the guys that could sell merch were making quite a lot of money back then. But you wouldn't get a T-shirt from a guy that you're supposed to hate. You wouldn't see fans turning up wearing it either. So when you think how things have changed, mate, you can buy literally any type of merchandise from any wrestler. Doesn't matter what they are. It's available, and I suppose really does it send out the wrong message, that anybody can change at any moment. When you think how quick the business changes, Matt, people are heels 1 minute, then they're not. It's tough, isn't it? And I think, to be honest, unless you're a type of Brock Lesnar type character, it's incredibly difficult to know, to really legitimately sit there and boo somebody like you really mean it, unless you're sort of 5-6 years old. Would I be right? Is there anybody, Matt, that's really got on your nerves to the point where you're so emotionally invested that you've literally given them proper heat to, or is it just like we just see everything now and we see past it?
Well, after what we've been talking about for the last couple of months, he's got to be Shane McMahon.
That's a good point. Why doesn't he turn?
See him again in a match.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, him. He'd be one for sure. I'm afraid I can't give you any better than that. But I do feel if they stop the PG, maybe they have a better chance. But yeah, I mean, selling merch isn't a smart idea. I think if somebody really wanted to take it really serious, they'd say, look, I'm gonna be so committed, I'm gonna lose out on that market for myself because I want to be the most hated guy. I'm gonna do no photos outside with kids and all the rest of it. I am literally that guy you don't talk to. I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm above everybody. If you have somebody who's fully committed, and by the way, someone like Andy Kaufman would have been, I guarantee it, he would have loved it, then yes, you would be genuine heat, and also you'd make a hell of a lot of money in the long run because you'd be probably the most hated guy on the roster, and everybody would want to see you get your ass kicked. So you'd always have those great sort of main event matches, waiting for the next guy to beat